Hi, Summer. Thank you for joining us. We're really glad to have you on our podcast today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
What can you tell us about yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Summer. I'm a paramedic, advanced care paramedic. I've worked rurally in the city. I've done dental sedations, different kinds of healthcare. I got into it from my family. My whole family's in healthcare. My mom's a nurse. My dad's a firefighter paramedic. My sister's just graduating advanced care paramedic school herself and previously worked as a primary care paramedic. Um, Yeah, but like that's just what I do for my job. A lot of paramedics you'll see like they make paramedicine their entire identity, but that is just what I do to pay my bills. There are so many more interesting things about me. I figure skate, I make sourdough from scratch. I love makeup. I have my own makeup business. I have a dog. you know, lots of other things, but that's how I got here, mostly from my family.
What got you started into your career?
Definitely my parents. Yeah, honestly, for some people, it's wanting to help others, and that is wonderful purpose. That is great. But for me, honestly, I like to see and do cool shit. I want to see and do cool stuff. Rollovers, accidents, stabbings, shootings, broken bones, impaled objects. That's the stuff that brings me thrill and joy. And some people find chaos chaotic and they can't operate. But for me, I feel like I'm the most calm and level headed in chaos. And that's actually been something that was said negatively about me when I'm sure we'll get on the topic of workplace bullying, but I've had bullies try and get me in trouble by reporting my behavior on calls and it being nothing that affected the patient, so it gets tossed out. But their comments were, she didn't seem to care that I wasn't wearing on my face how stressed and anxious I was on this call because I can compartmentalize maybe a little bit better, but I'm calm in chaos. Maybe that's childhood trauma, but who knows?
And how do you balance that with the rest of your life?
Oh, definitely, I've learned that self care is the antidote to burnout. So, burnout is when you're giving, 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 and you're never refilling into your own cup, and you can't pour from an empty cup. So, if baseline, so self care does not have to look like bath bombs and face masks. Self care is actually often the one thing that you don't feel like doing, but you know you're going to feel so good after for doing it. So, that 45-minute yoga class, a 30-minute outdoor walk, uh, a 20-minute shoulder workout at the gym. For me, that also looks like figure skating. It's moving my body, it's getting endorphins going, it helps me sleep better. Making sourdough from scratch. I like to carve little nice pictures into it. It's almost like therapeutic and cathartic that way. So, refilling your cup and self care. For me, that also looks like bath bombs and face masks, but some other things too. And when you're in periods of down in the dumps, if you would self care maybe 1 to 2 times a week, you need to double it during times of high stress. So now you're doing it 4 times a week. That's the
Right.
antidote.
And what would you say is your most memorable moment at work?
Oh, my most memorable moment at work. Hmm. Most, you know what? A very high memorable moment for my personal career would be when I finally switched over from primary care paramedic to advanced care paramedic. You get these, we call them epaulets. They're your thing on your shoulder that designate what level you're at, what area you're at, how many stars you have, those kinds of things. And when I finally passed and graduated and got my advanced care license, I came to work that day and there was a supervisor waiting with my new advanced care epaulets. So that was a pretty emotional and happy day to don those and put them on. In terms of my career, it's always the patients that like that say something that just leave you thinking about them that make the job worth it for me. So I don't know that I have one patient that outweighs all of them, but there's a top three at least of patients where you're just like this poor person in this life that they're living and they're thanking me at the end. So you're like, oh, those patients make being spit on, sworn at, flipped off, all these things so worth it.
And do you happen to have a moment that in your career that left you changed as a person?
Mm, changed as a person. Maybe yes and no. Again, I like to have a certain level of boundary because I
Right.
don't want to take too much of it home. I recognize that it's not my emergency. I'm just here to help someone in a moment of their need. But obviously, I'm human and you feel those feelings too, right? So, I mean, I've cried on scene with a family after pronouncing their loved one dead. Um, I've gone home thinking about the mother's screams. You know, those are the kind of things that stick with you. Um, so I don't know if I have one call that changed me, but definitely that compounded, adding them up. And then you're like, yeah. So, for example, like changes in myself as a person, I never used to have much of a startle response. I would never jump scare easily. I was never very fearful. I wasn't naive, but I wasn't fearful. Today, I my friends joke that I scare like a newborn babe. I'm very startly, very jumpy. I don't like large crowds. I don't like loud environments. I don't like concerts, airplanes, like festivals. Um, yeah. So it affects you over time.
And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Mm. So right now, I still work on the ambulance part time, and I teach as well at one of the local universities here. So I think in 5 years, I would like to see myself teaching more, maybe even full time. I would still like to keep my paramedicine, either part time or casual. I want to keep up my skills, and I enjoy like it gets you out in your community, meeting people, and the company I'm at now is much better. It's a smaller company. There's less employees. It's more community based, and you feel that with the employees. So I'm in a much happier environment. I definitely feel more hope that I can work until retirement in this career. But at my previous employer, like I was 3 to 5 years in, I'm now 9 years in, and I realized like I can't even retire from this job full time.
And if there was one thing you could change about your career, what would it be?
One thing I could change. Man, oftentimes it just comes down to the policies and the political stuff of an employer. Like, I like doing calls, I like meeting patients, I don't mind typing up paperwork, I don't mind cleaning the bed. But what I do mind is having policies that protect people who report and abuse on others, not getting meals or breaks because there's not enough ambulances running because we're critically short staffed. So then there's pending 911 calls. So I wish I could change that we had more trucks so that I could work a little less hard and get a bathroom break or a meal break here and there. Most of my days I don't get a pee or a meal until like 4:30 in the evening because I'll sign in at 7 a.m., let's say, and it'll be call after call after call after call. As soon as you hit clear from the hospital and you think I'm going to get to a station and I'm going to use the microwave and eat, ping, another call. So you never make it to that station for that meal or bathroom. Your only option is to use the public ones at the hospital. But not every patient gets transported to the hospital, right? Think about like a diabetic patient. This is a bit of a tangent, but diabetic patient, you rescue, you fix their blood sugar problem. They've had diabetes since they were two. They're 36 years old. They don't want to go to the hospital. They don't need to. But now, if they don't go to the hospital, there goes my break. Now, as soon as I clear that person's house, ping, another 911 call. And maybe now it could be for someone with the sniffles who just needs Advil and again doesn't need transport. If I'm not transporting to the hospital, there's my break. So again, you clear that call, ping. So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I'm not saying that I could make the decisions better, but it would be nice to have in a working environment that does not demoralize staff, that does not turn them away, and rather brings them in. Because the more paramedics we have, the more trucks we have. The more trucks we have, the less call and volume and pressure on each individual unit, which means like the more likely I'm going to get a break and a pee and get to go home on time at the end of the day.
Have you ever had
Yeah.
an observe and report culture at work? And how did this affect your mental health, job performance, and relationships with your colleagues?
Oh, man. I've come to learn now that like organizations that are this large, they are prone to being systemically toxic. And it's like when you have that many employees and you're that large of an organization, your employees are objects of compliance and risks to be mitigated. We were not treated like humans that are capable of conflict resolution or like sound thought or clinical judgment. So, a system of control and compliance is going to demoralize employees, and that's going to create a observe and report culture. And it seemed, in my experience, those that would observe and report would get rewarded with opportunities, raises, supervisory jobs, all the like. And the ones that were reported on, they were watched. And once you're reported on and scrutinized on, you kind of have more eyes on you. And then it just becomes this vicious cycle of like trying to avoid scrutiny, but then maybe making more mistakes because you're trying to avoid scrutiny, but then you're being scrutinized on, and then you get reported for that mistake, and then avoiding scrutiny, and it's a vicious cycle. So it does not make you work better or perform better. It makes you more anxious in your job, which makes you more susceptible to mistakes. And that's kind of where it started for me, was toxic environment. And people having a one-sided relationship with me based on my presence online is my best guess. A lot of people said like, oh, they're just jealous, but I'm like, jealous of what though? Because if they wanted to do Instagram, they could go do Instagram. If they wanted to go figure skating and be a figure skater, they could go do figure skating too. Like, it's not a competition. What are you jealous of? So I think it was a one-sided relationship based on what they saw on social media about me, because they never met me in person. They never did a 911 call with me. We never did a shift together or worked on truck together. And it was people that never even bothered to follow my page. So they would literally have to, type into Instagram, Summer Penny, and look for me and watch all my stories. They made sure to never like, never engage, never follow. So then I didn't even get the notification of so-and-so is looking at your stuff, right? So then I'd be going to work with tremendous paranoia and anxiety over scrutiny from people that I don't know and have never met and don't know who to look out for. So I felt like I was walking on eggshells at work with people watching me, watching my socials, making fun of me behind my back, deciding that they didn't like me based on this one-sided relationship and waiting for me to make a mistake and reporting me and so on. And so those mistakes could be as mundane. And again, because of these policies, they're going to protect whoever reports and scrutinizes. If you were to complain back, then you are now retaliating or whistleblowing. So an example would be using your cell phone to navigate to a 911 call. When the mapping system and navigating system fails or misfunctions, malfunctions, and the policy states you're not allowed to use your phone. So your partner reports you for using your phone, and now you're pulled into the office for that. Something that has nothing to do with patient care, but is an opportunity to be weaponized against you by a colleague that doesn't like you.
Earlier, you said that you would be you wanted to go into education aspect of your field.
Mm-hmm.
Would you what would you say are things that you would want to change in your industry?
Ooh, definitely this eat alive culture. Um, I was I was one to have had a pretty poor practicum experience with a not so kind preceptor, and also having worked in the environment where I'm feeling bullied and scrutinized and ostracized and all these things. I know how terrible it is coming to work, wanting to cry before your shift, hoping you'll wake up and like get in a car accident or get appendicitis so that you don't have to go to work. Like, that is the dread that people with poor compassion, like compassion fatigue, burnout, and workplace bullying experience. Like, I would have rather gotten in a car accident or had to have needed emergency abdominal surgery than have to go to work. I was wishing for it to not have to go. So for me, I don't believe in this treating new and young people poorly. Everyone had their first day once, and everyone started at zero once before someone made it to hero. So I think that as I teach and take students and take mentees and take new people coming into the career, one thing that I really want to change or enforce is not eating our young. Everyone had their first day. Everyone never knew how to do something once upon a time. So being nice, being patient, being kind, there is a time and a place. If it's your first day on ambulance and we go right into a cardiac arrest and you don't know how to put it in OPA, I'm probably going to say, just back out, get out of the way for a second and do the things. But if it's a bread and butter cardiac chest pain call, like, we have time to teach and learn and be patient with new people.
So, what is this may have already been answered before, but what does a typical shift look like for you?
Okay. So What's nice about AHS is they have staggered starts. So we have an integrated service like your firefighter and your ambulance. They do strictly days and nights. They do 10-hour days, 14-hour nights. AHS does staggered starts. So it's great employer if you are a mom having a family. They do like the 8 to 3 kind of thing. So it depends on what truck you select for the year, and that's all seniority based. But for me, a general day looks like getting up at 5:30. I show up 20 minutes early for my 7 o'clock shift. I have a 12-hour shift, and then it's like a 45-minute drive home. So I don't get home until 8 p.m., and that's if I don't do overtime that day. So if someone calls 911 10 minutes before my shift is over and my relief isn't there yet, I have to go on that call. So now you're getting home even later. And something to consider is if you are a family man or a mom and you have young kids at home, like you might miss not just certain holidays or birthdays or events because you fall on shift, but even in the very evenings, you're going to miss bedtime, bath time, story time, homework, like quality time with your family because you end up going on overtime for something that's not even very emergent. So,
Right. And what qualities would you say makes someone a good paramedic?
hmm, well, a good paramedic, you got to have some dark humor, I think.
Yeah.
Got to be able to laugh through it sometimes. So, some dark humor, kindness and patience goes a long way. Um, Knowing your stuff, you can have someone that's book smart and is terrible on the road, or is excellent. What was I going to say? Yeah, excellent at the books, terrible on the road, or not so great at the books, but excellent on the road, right? So, knowing your skills, knowing your scope, always learning. You never give up learning in this career. Kindness, patience, dark humor. I think they'd be okay. Also, be able to deadlift.
And do you happen to remember what your first day on the job was like?
Oh, I do. Um, my very first day on the ambulance as a PCP student. It was a downtown core station. My preceptors were in their like mid 20s, so I was like, "Oh, thank God, I'm going to have nice people that aren't going to be crotchety and miserable." And we were just a downtown slave, like overdoses. I remember I did my first overdose and like begged for a patient, and that's when they have like the bagger, so breathing for them with the mask over their face and squeezing the bag to breathe for them. Yeah.
So, what are something that some people misunderstand about paramedics?
Hmm. People misunderstand about us. Sometimes people think we're cops. Sometimes people think we're police officers, police women. Some of us wear a hard shell, we call it, like an external hard vest that protects us against either like projectiles or sharps. So sometimes when we wear the vest, people mistake us for police officers. Um, Other than that, like a misconception, I don't know. Some people, you walk by, they thank you for your service. Others, they flip you off while you're driving by with your lights and sirens on. So you get a good mix of both, honestly. A misconception would maybe be that we're not so human, that, we run into 911 calls and that we don't stop to think about ourselves. If I don't first take care of myself, I can't take care of other people. So, if a building is burning and the ambulance is parked and we're not going in to help someone and the family's there screaming like help my family member, whatever, I can't help you if I'm burned myself. So I have to wait for that fire to be controlled and then help your patient or your loved one. So,
And so, what happens when you arrive at a scene? Usually, at a scene of an emergency.
what happens at the scene of an emergency?
Usually, what would you say happens whenever
Um,
you arrive at a scene of
yeah.
emergency?
Depends on the emergency. Oftentimes, there's either fire or police already on scene, and they are like directing traffic or keeping us safe in the ambulance. Sometimes we go up into the patient's house or apartment. Other times they meet us right out front the door. But oftentimes it's a who are you? What's your name? Your birthday? Your healthcare number? What's the problem today? Let's do a quick assessment, vitals, pat you down head to toe, find out what's wrong. Um, and see if there's any treatments we can do for you. And then we talk to deployment, which is our dispatching system, and they determine which hospital is best for you to go to based on resources in the city, how full the hospitals are, what the waits are like, and that'll optimize us to taking that person to the best hospital for their chief complaint.
Um, uh, and how do you make decisions really quickly when there's a lot of pressure?
Yeah. Thankfully, we work in partners. So, I mean, as the advanced care paramedic, technically, yes, the decisions are on me. Those like quick last minute decisions are on me. But I like to say, like, just because I've been an ACP for maybe, let's say, I think I'm on my 5th year now of an advanced care paramedic, that doesn't mean I can't learn something from my PCP partner who's been working for 18 years. So that's another thing that I would like to change about the culture is how we treat our colleagues, and like the changes in scope of practice and treating people beneath us just because they have lesser knowledge. You can always learn something from other people. So thankfully we work in twos, and if ever I'm like, oh man, I got to make a quick decision, like you can bounce it off your partner. Like, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? Do you have any tips, ideas? Do you think this is a bad idea? And then ultimately I make the final decision and whatever. But it's nice. Also, we have, we call it Call a Friend, but we have an OLMC, online medical control. And so if ever you're really stuck and you're like, ugh, either I need more authorization to do something or you're nervous about a treatment, you can call online medical control. And that's a physician on call, and they can help us supersede our protocols for certain treatments, or tell us things that are out of our scope, but technically they're signing it off. So it's like a supervised treatment.
And have you ever happened to train a new paramedic? And what do you call them? Like,
Oh,
I know for each career they have a different name for a
yeah.
newbie and whatnot.
Yeah.
And how did it go for you?
So a new employee, when they're mentoring or they're being mentored to the new position, we just call them a mentee, mentor and mentee. When they're students, we literally call them students. Firefighters will nickname them and call them Stu. So like Stu, Stewie. But that's kind of been deemed hazing now, so they try and get to learn your name. But if you're getting, it's a term of endearment, is what it is from the firefighters. But typically, someone who has their license and is orientating to the new workplace will be a mentee. Someone who's a student working under our license to do their practicum and is not yet employed with their own license is just a student, a practicum student. Yeah, yeah. We don't really like do the rookie names and stuff like fire departments do or police do. But certainly to describe someone new, you'd be like, oh yeah, like a rookie, someone new. Another
Speaking
term
of
is green. We use the word
right,
green. Yeah, like, oh, she's really green, to indicate that she's really new and maybe limited experience.
speaking of rookie, you reminded me of the show on Netflix. So, do you like other careers? I know doctors and lawyers. They sit down and they start watching the show, and they're like nitpicking every part of it, and they're like, "This is wrong. This is wrong."
Yeah.
And then they eventually get up and they walk out. They're
Yeah.
like, "I can't watch this show." Do you find, or how do you find watching shows with paramedics in them? And
I
what
used
is
to
your favorite one?
So favorites would be definitely like Grey's Anatomy, Chicago 19, or was it Station 19, Chicago Fire? Those are definitely some favorites. I heard The Pit is really high up there. I have not watched The Pit. I found myself loving my medical shows, and like Grey's Anatomy is like half real, half not. Um, some of them are pretty good though. Like Station 19 is pretty accurate for the most part, my dad said. Um, but the pit, I hear, is very much like our real job. Um, Around COVID, that's when I stopped watching my favorite medical shows, because I get it, like to be able to keep filming and to be able to explain in the storylines why everyone's masked up and stuff. In Grey's Anatomy, they started incorporating COVID-19 into Grey's Anatomy episodes. And then for me, it just kind of started making my comfort shows, my favorite shows, no longer fun trying to figure out a diagnosis for the patient, and more so just about the work that I was already doing, masking and PPE and breathing problems. And I was like, oh, I don't want to work and then come home and watch work. So Literally
Yeah.
since COVID, I have not watched any medical shows. They're just not landing the same anymore. But yeah, certainly I have heard from anyone that's watched The Pit that it is exactly like work.
Right. Seems like these companies, they are always going towards more like storyline and satisfying the investor rather than telling the honest truth about
Yeah.
what actually goes on the front lines and stuff.
Yeah, right? Yeah, like when I tell people that I work all day long and don't get a meal or bathroom break till 4:30 and then I don't get home till 9 cuz I did overtime after, they're flabbergasted. And I'm like, that happens more days than not. So, yeah, it's crazy how we could have such a important job but a job that doesn't have things like breaks.
And would you say like it, it some level of what see on TV and in shows and whatnot is kind of giving a misinterpretation about what frontline workers, especially paramedics,
Mm.
do, and people have the wrong idea when they actually uh, interact with a paramedic, and they're like uh,
Mm,
um,
yeah.
not sure what to do and stuff.
Yeah, probably, right? Like these shows always portray these healthcare practitioners as like very hardworking go-getters, like they never take rest for themselves. And we see that a lot in newcomers that come to AHS specifically, and the reason is because they're so short-staffed. They want to fill the seats. A whole bunch of new young people come in, they see all these available shifts, they're so excited for overtime, so they grab them all and they work themselves out and burn themselves out in 5 years. So this career has an expectancy of 5 to 7 years because of that. And, I do wonder if seeing these shows where your favorite actors are being doctors and they never take a break and they never take a day off and they do the overtime and the 24-hour shift and something just completely unrealistic, if that affects people's work ethic going into their career at all. Because, like, again, we can't take care of others if we don't first take care of ourselves. And yeah, like misconceptions of how the doctors and nurses and paramedics respond, right? Like, intermingly with each other and even with the patients. It's a little more convoluted than real life, but
I find from point, your career and whatnot is very well balanced. What is so like for someone who is very struggling in other parts of their life, as when their career is affected being a paramedic, how would they be able to cope with all the mental health and what mental health outlets are there for paramedics?
so your employer has a whole bunch of options, so I'm going to leave that to people going through their employer that route, but definitely therapy. um, like the doctors always say, moving your body and getting outside and doing 60 minutes of exercise a day, you're like, that's not going to work, but does it ever? I did just the meds. I did the stress sleeve and the meds, and it wasn't until I did the meds with the stupid daily outdoor walk and the stupid 5 meals a day and the getting to the gym and moving my body, like it wasn't until I had the cocktail of all of it that my mental health actually got better. So if anyone is in the trenches of healthcare and thinking that they can't get out of it and it's never going to get better and they're stuck here and they're miserable, do the stupid walk that you don't want to do. It comes back to self-care, right? Self-care is not going to be something that you want to do. It's going to be the thing that you don't want to do, but you know you're going to feel better after. So get to see your doctor, get to see your therapist, get outside, move your body. And again, it doesn't have to be slugging around weights. You could do figure skating like me. You could go do a yoga class. You could go do a hike, right? So move your body, fuel your mind with meditations or books or whatever. Have hobbies outside of work. Make paramedicine just what you do for money to pay your bills. That is not your entire identity. That is not who you are. It is just your job. And if that looks like leaving your employer, reducing to part time and casual, doing other things in healthcare, like there's flight nursing, it would depend on the job, but looking into other things that gets you off ambulance if that's the thing that's sucking your soul.
I feel like this might be coming back to the ambulance and whatnot, but I forgot this question was what's your most what's an equipment that you rely on most in the ambulance?
Ooh, rely on the most. Probably our radio. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like a toss up For on patients, we definitely use our life pack the most, the thing that lets us do our vitals. We use that the most on our patients. But in my day-to-day job, the thing that I use the most is my radio, and it's attached to my body at all times. It's how we communicate to dispatch, to supervisors, to fire, CCC, which is dispatch. We can let them know if we're in danger, in trouble. We can let them know if we need more resources. They let us know if they need us to go to another station or what hospital to go to. So there's a lot of communications happening on that radio, and definitely vital piece of equipment.
I only have like a very small aspect of understanding because I used to work at an alarm company and we used to answer emergency calls, so fire, police, and ambulance. And
Yeah.
I have spoken to a lot of dispatch for paramedics and telling them that someone's having a medical emergency and so address, and
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
understanding the lingo was the hardest for me.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Uh, When you started, what was the most difficult um, thing that you had to like about your career that you've overcome?
An area that I struggled, I think, when I first graduated advanced care paramedicine and then was working on the road was applying theory to practice. I knew how I wanted to treat the patient. I knew what meds I wanted to use. I knew what methods and all these things. But then it would be like, how are you going to get them out of the house? Something so bread and butter that maybe someone who had more experience than me would have been able to come up with immediately. But me, like, I'm like, like, so many options, couldn't pick one. What am I going to pick? And just like, and then almost like the flood of too many options makes you paralyzed and you can't pick one option, and then again comes back to feeling like you're being scrutinized and then paralyzed even more. So I could tell my preceptors like, yeah, like these are the treatments, this is how I want to do it, and feel so confident in my scope and my knowledge. But then when it came to something like how you're going to get them out of the house, just kind of fumbling over it. So they call it zero to hero, and that's when someone goes from like EMR, which is basically advanced first aid, all the way to advanced care paramedic. And when you do that quickly, they call that zero to hero, because you're not having much working experience in between. So I had about 1 year of on-car experience before I went to ACP, so one could call that zero to hero. And that is just what it is like someone that maybe worked as an EMT for 5 years would maybe have that bread and butter experience down pat, and then they could go to ACP school. So I went with more limited experience, and that made, for me, in my experience, the theory or applying it a little more challenging. But everyone starts at zero, everyone gets to hero. I passed, I got my license just like everyone else, and, with experience comes confidence.
What is the most challenging part of working with patients or their families?
Most challenging part of families of the patients. Sometimes they can be certain ethnicities, certain ethnic groups. They'll have a lot of family members in the house. Maybe they don't want their female family members with male practitioners. So then it becomes a lot of the male family relatives protecting that patient. So sometimes you come in and it's like a pregnant woman with a migraine, but you've got 12 relatives in the house. It's like, okay, well, we don't need all these people here. So sometimes it can be hard to get to the patient, asking them questions, and the relative is answering for them. Like, I need to hear it in the patient's words, what they're experiencing and what's going on. So sometimes families are too involved and too kind of over your shoulder. Other times they're aggressive, angry, and we're in fear for our lives. Other times they're completely sobbing, crying, like if someone's dying or deceased and we pronounce them and you're having to console someone's loved one. So sometimes they can be challenging to manage. And I would say that comes back to being a preconceived notion of paramedics. Like, we're not just paramedics. Sometimes we are social workers, taxi drivers, babysitters. So.
And how important? Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say many facets.
Oh yes, yes, for sure. And how important would you say is teamwork between paramedics, firefighters, police officers, and hospital staff?
Oh, so important. So important. I think it would be really important for all of us to get to do like a day, as you're in school learning, a day shadowing each category and seeing. As paramedics, we do a hospital practicum, but nurses don't do a ambulance practicum, neither do physicians. We don't do a police practicum. So I think it would be super interesting to see behind the scenes of each person's job, because if I go to a crazy car accident, a multi-vehicle pileup, I'm going to need police there to secure the scene. I'm going to need firefighters there to secure the vehicles. We're going to need ambulances there to treat the patients. We're going to need dispatch to contact the hospital and talk to all those people. We're going to need the hospital to have beds ready, and they're going to have to talk to like the Royal Alex, the University of Alberta, the major city hospitals, and say, okay, you take 10, we'll take 6. That way we have enough people and resources. And when we get there, then we're going to talk to the nurses and doctors, and they're going to come up with their treatment plan. So literally, if we did not have all of those pieces, patients wouldn't get seen in a timely manner. If we didn't have fire and police or dispatch to help us do those communications and early scene safety, we wouldn't get to the patients fast. We wouldn't get them to the hospital fast. And without dispatch, there wouldn't be any heads up to the hospitals to notify and expect these critical patients. So certainly we are all, sometimes communication gets wary, when it's passed down the lines, but it is all very important roles to communicate together, to work together effectively, and to be ultimately supporters of each other, because we're all supposed to work together. And sometimes the teams will butt head, but
Right.
we need each other.
And yes, definitely. It's like 5 fingers on a hand.
Literally, right?
Have you ever had to think creatively or outside of the box during an emergency? And what was that like?
Yeah. You get dispatch notes and you think you're going into a call, and again, it could sound like that bread and butter call of either like a cardiac chest pain or an overdose, but no call is ever going to be the same. So every call is different, and every call you learn something new. So yeah, I mean, without diving into patient situations or whatever, like certainly you just go on some cool calls and you're just like, well, that was very interesting, or that was very suspicious, or like I always say, trust your spidey senses and trust your gut, because sometimes you go and you're like, I don't know about that call, like I might want to report that one. I think that one needs a report. um, yeah.
And has there ever been an unexpected situation that you have encountered?
Unexpected situation. You know what? There was one time when I was transporting a patient. So my partner's driving and we're treating and transporting in the back. And it has never happened to me to be driving the ambulance with a patient in the back and then witness a vehicle collision. So we're in the ambulance with a patient and we witness an accident. And as the first people to witness an accident, you're supposed to pull over. Are you okay? Do you need me to call 911? And so we're like, well, this is weird. We're the ambulance. So we can't leave our patient. That's abandonment then. So my partner pulled over. I stayed in the back with the patient in there with me. And my partner went out and assessed the situation and went to see if everyone was okay. So we had to call for another ambulance to another station or to another situation. But yeah, that was unexpected.
That certainly is unexpected.
Yeah.
Has a patient ever or a family member ever said something that you will never forget?
Yeah, there was probably 2 times I think of, and both of them were times patients died. One of them was my first year as an advanced care paramedic, and I remember my entire practicum, I didn't get a single cardiac arrest. And that was a big call that I was like feeling some anticipation about, and I really wanted to do one on my practicum. I didn't get one. And I can feel a hair in my eye. There we go. I really wanted a cardiac arrest on my practicum, and I didn't get one. So, of course, Murphy's Law, my first year, graduated school. I'm on my own now. I'm working under my own license. That first Christmas as an advanced care paramedic, I think I did 4 cardiac arrests that Christmas tour or something, and all of them died. But there was one female, and her and her husband, geriatric, no kids, Christmas morning, and she woke up and he was he fell out of the bed and he was no pulse. So we do cardiac arrest, like we do CPR on him and ultimately call it. He's deceased. And we have to wait for the medical examiner to come. And so we're sitting at the table waiting, and I'm just doing some documentation, and we're just trying to ask them, like, can we get you water? Like, is there anything we can do? And I remember she asked me if it would be okay if she prayed. And I just remember thinking, like, you don't have to ask me. I'm in your home. I'm in your home and just told you that your husband's dead. And you're asking me, is it okay if you pray in your native language? Like, yeah. That just really stuck out. And of course, like, I mean, I didn't speak the language, but me, her, I don't know if it was her daughter or sister or another woman with her, and then the wife of the deceased. And so we sat at the table and prayed. Another one would be a young, was she 30-something-year-old female who went to the hospital with just nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, was sent home with some medicines to help the vomiting, diarrhea, went home, still had vomiting, diarrhea, collapsed downstairs in the bathroom. Mom calls 911 for her. We arrive. We get her in a tarp upstairs, get her in the back of the ambulance, and as soon as we close the back ambulance doors, she codes. She goes into cardiac arrest. Healthy female, nothing wrong with her, and she unfortunately died. And her parents were coming behind in their own private vehicle, and so I had to tell them in the ambulance bay, like, your daughter went into cardiac arrest, and took them to a private room and took them to her body. So she was covered with a sheet, and they got to see her and say goodbye to her and stuff, and I had to get a piece of equipment and leave. And the dad hugged me and said, thank you so much for all your effort, all your work. Just the usual stuff, like, you guys did everything you could. Thank you, thank you. And again, it's like, man, I just told you that your child is dead, and you're giving me a hug. Yeah.
So sorry you had to experience that.
Thank you. But you know what? Those are the ones that touch your heart and stay with you in a good way. They're sad, but yeah. And so, like, those are the patients that I'm like, oh, I wonder where they are today, you know? But.
Well, it leads. The next question is also similar to this one. It's what has this career taught you about people?
Oh, wow. This career has taught me that not a lot of people, not all people have very many tools to cope. Some people don't know when to call 911. Some people don't know what is an emergency. And some people get scared and call immediately. So I've learned a lot about humans and our ability or inability to cope. I've learned a lot about intergenerational trauma and what that looks like and how that shows up in other people's households. I've learned tons about other cultures and religions and how they behave behind closed doors and how I need to change how I behave in their households. Yeah, it's taught me to be aggressive when I need to be. We call it like a mom voice. And it's also taught me to be extremely empathetic and kind and patient when I need to be. So, yeah, a lot of tools.
What is something that someone should do when they're waiting for the ambulance?
Oh,
That would be helpful for the paramedics.
yeah. If you're able to get up and move, make sure that you get a pair of shoes on. Typically, I like to say easy ones that are easy to slide on and slide off, that have some grip. So a pair of Crocs, a pair of sandals, whatever, something that you can slide on. Have your healthcare card ready. If you're older and you have a green sleeve, have your green sleeve ready. And yeah, greet them at the door. Have a light turned on. Sometimes, you end up in weird situations. You come to the house and the door is cracked open a bit and there's no lights on and it's dark black and you don't know what you're entering.
Yeah.
So just have a light on and your healthcare card ready and no weapons.
And yeah, that's like walking into a sketchy situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right? And see, that's another thing. Like, yeah, we do that. We walk into scary situations. You're like, oh, there's a shotgun here? Bye!
Yeah.
True story.
So yeah. Oh, really? You
Yeah.
walked into someone with a shotgun?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then a person with a blown off foot from the shotgun.
Okay.
And then we had to run out of there. And then police came because we said we were not safe. Police came. The assailant with the weapon was gone. And they dragged the patient into the alley to meet us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a really unique story.
Yeah, and then like paramedics, we don't get taught defensive courses. We're not allowed to cause harm, so we don't get taught things like the police do about like like manipulating you to cause pain so that you no longer fight back. Um, we're not taught stuff like that. We're taught to take the vital monitor, the life pack, although it's like 45 pounds, to throw that at them and run. So
Right.
yeah.
And so, like, are paramedics allowed to do self defense on their own and use that skill if
We're
it
taught,
comes?
we do one violent prevention course, and it's mostly getting out of a grip. So, like, if someone had a grab of your wrist, ways to like weaken their thumb and wrist so that you can break free, but that's it. I mean, certainly if it was like life or death, I'm sure we're allowed to exert some force to get ourselves safe,
Hmm.
but not obviously untoward violence.
And what is what information should someone give when they're talking to the dispatcher?
Oh, um, like age, sex, weight, and height, chief complaint, what you did for it, if anything, right? So if you're a 45-year-old male, chest pain, was playing basketball, the pain started, it got better as I'm relaxing, I've taken nothing, I have no medical history, no allergies, I'm at the basketball court, see you when you get here.
Right.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the most rewarding part of being a paramedic?
Having those conversations with patients that are with it enough. Oh, that's going to sound so vain to say to thank me for my service. No, it's not thanking me for my service. It's having the work I do be recognized. It feels good to have the sacrifices or the work you make. Like I feel a lot better about overtime and missing a meal when it's for an emergency stroke. You know what I mean? So feeling like the efforts and the work is recognized and having patients that you feel happy to help see that and thank you for it. Yeah, it's just nice to connect with patients on that level.
What advice would you give someone who's considering a career in paramedic?
Mm. As I tell my students, I like to say, you know what, it's a rewarding career, it's a cool career. You're going to get to see and do a lot of cool stuff, but you're also going to have to be like a taxi driver, a babysitter, a social worker. Not everyone calls 911 for all emergencies all the time. And that was something that I didn't know going into this career. So if you can ebb and flow from crazy cardiac arrest, stabbings, overdoses to stub toes, granny fall to cardiac arrest to back down to like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, if you can do that day in, day out and keep up on your self care and not find yourself in a place of compassion fatigue and burnout, and you can manage workplace conflicts, um, then yeah, I would say, it can be a very rewarding career. Just you have to do the work for yourself to be able to withstand all that you'll do in the career.
Right.
Yeah.
And if listeners remember one thing from our meeting today, what would you say it should be?
Oh. That your career is more than just what you do. It is not who you are, it is what you do. And there are so many other amazing things about you, and don't lose those things of yourself just for your career. If you take anything from it, it's that you can be multifaceted, and don't be afraid to be multifaceted. It feels like I was maybe kind of targeted because I dare to do more than one thing out of my career. So if you are feeling like I have felt in the past of bullied, ostracized, all those things, you're not alone. We're in it together. And don't give up on yourself and your hobbies and things that make you happy.
Would you like to share any website, YouTube, or Instagram or TikTok so
Ooh.
people can follow you on there?
Okay. Well, I'm on Instagram and TikTok at summer_penny, YouTube Summer Penny, and I just share a lot of romanticizing life, like trying to show up every day by doing the mundane things like making my tea and going to the gym and doing my errands, but trying to romanticize it so that it doesn't feel so mundane. And I do that through, again, like my sourdough, makeup. I have my own artistry business, my own cosmetics. I'm getting married next month. So I post a lot of day in the life content, romanticizing life as an off duty paramedic, and being a professional.
Awesome. Congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. Take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.